Hey, good morning, Eden. So this week's quota. We'll go back to Tzaddik Dalet. Good morning, on. Having established and learned the principle of not bar not, uh, second degree flavor, right? Where the question is not flavor that's absorbed directly from the source, but it's flavor that's absorbed from something that's absorbed from the source. Yeah, that's what we learned in inside the K. So now we go back to Tzaddik Dalet, and we're going to be learning Bays, Gimel, and Dalet and Hay today, right? Is that included? I think excuse me, yeah, Bays, Gimel, Dalet, and Hay. Now, it's not very difficult, the subject matter. And in fact, for the most part, it's application of everything we've already learned. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to present the scenario of each of the paragraphs, and you'll tell me what you think based on everything we've already learned. And we'll kind of see how these principles build to create the halacha that we have. So the first one actually is not based on any principle, but still there's logical deduction here. So you'll tell me what you think. So the question in Tzaddik Daled B'chlal is the question of someone who puts the wrong ladle into the wrong bowl, to the wrong pot, meat pot, and you stick the dairy ladle in there. Yeah. So we already established that if the ladle is ben yoimai, right? If it's being used for dairy within the last 24 hours, right? Then you would need 60 in the meat stew against the ladle, and everything is fine. Right? And we discussed that was it 2 weeks ago, the details around that. Yeah. So what happens now if you dip it twice? Actually, there is a principle that we once learned that would help us understand this. Mm-hmm. So you dipped it once, you didn't realize, and then you dipped it again. What's the halacha now?
But if there's 1 in 60, then the second time you dipped it, it's good.
That would be one view. The Ramah is going to say that. One view is dip once, twice, 3 times. It doesn't make a difference. There's 60 against the density of the ladle. It's never going to emit more than its own size. You're 60 times the ladle. You're fine, even if it went in more than once. Can you give me a counter svara?
The one that you said that
applying a certain principle.
You're purposely putting the ladle in?
No, you don't know. It's all by accident. You only realize later after you did it 2 times, that it was a dairy ladle. What happens to the ladle? What's the halach of the ladle itself? You dip the ladle in, so the meat is 60 to the ratio of the ladle. What's that? What's the din of the ladle? What would be the din of the ladle?
Ladle treif.
The ladle's treif, because it's a dairy ladle. It was used in the last 24 hours. It just absorbed meat. It now has milk and meat in it. It's no kosher. And I dip it in a second time. What happened now?
Now you're dipping in a treif ladle.
Now I'm dipping in a treif ladle. So I need a second time 60. The first time I needed 60 to nullify the dairy. But now I need 60 to nullify the milk and meat.
It could be the same 60.
It could be the same 60, but I need 120. Because you need.
But if 60 annuls the
we had with the pod, right? With the drop, and then
that was the principle of chanan in absorption. If there's chanan in absorption, then you need now 60 to nullify the first time when the milk was emitted, and then another 60 to nullify
the drop, and then 60 times the meat,
and then 6 times the meat that was absorbed in this thing that now came out. Because chanan. That's the Mechaber's view.
So the Mechaber is actually strict here.
Mechaber is actually strict here.
So you would need twice 60 or so?
Yeah.
No, but it's different. What I'm saying for the drop in the meat, 60 times the drop is nothing, and 60 times the meat is significant. So
you need twice 60. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Yeah. You need twice 60.
Doesn't matter.
60 against the milk and then 60 against the milk and meat that's now coming out of this thing. Sorry?
The kind of ladle that you use, like for example, if it's glass or metal, it's
so far we haven't yet discussed the different types of materials. So we're just going to assume it's absorbent material. To make it simple, we're going to call it metal. Actually, metal is not simple because metal, we had the opinion which said that you need the whole thing, but we rejected that opinion anyway. But let's just say it's wood, whatever it is. Yeah? So that's the Shulchan Aruch's opinion. Chanan the first 60 against the milk that's been emitted from that ladle, and then the next time around 60 against the chanan of that ladle, because the ladle now absorbed from meat and now it's gone back out. Not just milk coming out of this ladle, it's now basar b'chalav coming out of this ladle. Okay? Counter argument to that would be what? To support their Amazi that you only need 1 times 60? Does he not say Hanan here? And why not? There was a machlekes, and we learned about the drop going on the outside of the pot. There was a machlekes. Do we even apply Hanan to absorption? So combining, even though the Ramah there I think was more stringent, but combining that leniency, because there's a view anyway that says it's there's no Hanan in absorption, and the fact that the ladle's never going to emit more than its own size, so the Ramah here is lenient. Interestingly enough. Okay, that's Sif Beis. Sif Gimel.
Does it matter if it's a Kli Rishon or Kli Sheni? Or if they're both
It's assuming it's Kli Rishon, assuming the pot is a Kli Rishon because it's on the fire and you're dipping in a ladle which was used within the last 24 hours. Because if it's not used in the last 24 hours, it's nice and time of gum, it's negative favor, and you don't even need the 60, it's fine.
And if it's Kli Sheni, then it's also not as
The
difficult.
Kli Sheni, we had the machlokes, if Kli Sheni will cause absorption completely. We had this in
You
Kufay.
can only do one, so
Sorry?
you can only emit or absorb. You can't-
Right, only emit or absorb. We learned that. Or if it's only Kli Klipa, there's different opinions about the Kli Sheni that we learned in Kufay. So we'd apply that standard here as well. Okay, number 2 is a question of the following. Sif Gimel. Now let's see if you can figure out what the halach would be here. Pretty straightforward din. No machlekes. You have now you did have 60 against the ladle. You did have 60, right? So the food, the meat stew is perfectly fine. It nullified any flavor of milk, right? The ladle, we said, of course, is no good because it absorbed both milk and meat. It absorbed milk in its original absorption. It's ben yoimoy, and now it absorbed meat when I put it in there. And therefore, if I take that ladle and I put it into either another stew that's either milk or meat, what's the din with that new stew? So I have a dairy ladle that was used in the last 24 hours. I put it into a Kli Rishon meat ladle, meat pot. The pot's kosher because it had 60 times the ratio of the ladle. Take the ladle out. The ladle is no good because it's absorbed both milk and meat. Then I take that and I dip it into either milk or into a ladle or into a fleshik ladle. Into a fleshik.
You need to have 60. You need to have 60 times.
You need to say 60 against that ladle,
Yeah.
even if I'm going back to milk.
Yeah,
Because now it's safe. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? Now, if in the case where you didn't have 60 against the ladle, so certainly the meat stew is not kosher.
Mhm.
The ladle isn't kosher, and the pot also isn't kosher.
Mhm.
Is there anything I can use the pot for? Without looking in the Shulchan Aruch and cheating.
Yeah.
What can you use the pot for?
To put cold foods in.
Put cold foods in. You cheated?
No?
But yes,
Because cold doesn't
because
absorb.
why not?
Yeah.
What's the only problem you might think of that you're not allowed to put the cold food in there?
Or the pick it goes with the other. You have it.
Well,
What
cold-
about putting Parve food in there?
Sorry.
Thing of vinegar.
Didn't we say something mentioned once that putting Parve food is also okay?
Cold Parve. If it's hot Parve, then you're
Hot
going to be absorbing from the milk
The
and
meat.
meat that's inside the pot, right? Because
What
this pot has basa b'chalav in it.
Okay.
So, but you could put cold. What would be the logic that maybe you think that you shouldn't have even use it for cold? Because basa b'chalav is not just forbidden to eat; it's also forbidden by what?
Benefiting from it.
It's also forbidden by hana. It's also forbidden by having benefit. Aaron, come get a chair from one second. It's also forbidden by benefit.
You benefit,
Are you benefiting from the milk and meat now when you put your cold vegetables into that bowl?
you're benefiting from the pot.
Oh, you're benefiting from the pot, not from anything that's absorbed in it.
But the
The only way to benefit from the absorption is if you cooked it up to the point that you extracted from that absorption. So the fact that it happens to contain milk and meat in it doesn't mean to throw it out. It just means don't use it for heat anymore. Just don't use it in such a way where you're going to be extracting the flavor. But if you're not extracting the flavor, the fact that it happens to have milk and meat in it doesn't mean you're taking benefit from it. You're benefiting from the pot itself, not from the absorption in the pot.
Are we talking about using that pot within 24 hours after it was contaminated? In other words,
Okay,
after
so
the
it's a good
24
point.
hours, you
So
could
if-
clean it and make it kosher again.
You can kosherize it certainly.
Right.
And once you kosherize it, then you can use it, no problem. Now, the question of using it l'chatchila is even if it's after 24 hours. Because
Even if
even
you
though,
kosher
no, not kosherizing.
Oh, okay.
If you kosherize, then you kosher it. That's a reset, right?
Mhm.
Here we're not talking about kosherizing. We're talking about using it before it's been kosherized.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in that case, the prohibition of cooking with it is not is true even after 24 hours. We already learned this. That lechatchila we don't use kelim that are ena ben yoman. Right?
Okay.
You're not going to take a meat pot that you used last week and make a cheese soup.
Yeah.
Why? It's nice and dam gum. Okay, so post factum, it's not going to cause any isser here because it's nice and down of gum. But lechatchila, you're not going to go ahead and use it, right? So same thing is true of this pot here. It's
So
a
the
pot.
pot overpowers
Sorry,
the fact that you can't derive any benefit from it overpowers any other ruling.
no. What I'm saying here is that to cook use the pot for anything hot, that you cannot do even if it's 24 hours later and then the flavor is negative. So even if the flavor is not going to ruin the food you're cooking, you still don't do it lechatchila. Right? Now, you could use the pot for cold, even though there's a prohibition against having benefit from milk and meat, because when you take a pot that has milk and meat absorbed in it and you put cold fruit in it, you're not having benefit from the milk and meat. You're having benefit from the pot. The pot happens to contain milk and meat in it.
Isn't that one and the same?
Not really, because how are you benefiting from the milk and meat?
You're not, but you're
Right out.
benefiting.
Exactly.
from the pot that
It
has
so
milk.
happens that if you cooked it, if you cook food in there, now you are having benefit from the milk and meat because you're extracting the flavor. But and not just having benefit, you're actually eating it. Right? But if you're putting cold things in there, you're not having any flavor from the milk and meat that happens to be absorbed in there. You're having benefit from the pot, which is totally fine. You know, the pot happens to contain milk and meat. It's the container. It so happens to have milk and meat in
So
it
it's the same thing like we learned with the trick pot, technically.
that you can use it for cold.
They're cold.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Precisely. That's right. Where cold things you could put on a counter.
Yeah.
We looked at you could put cold things on a counter. Lechatchila. Yes, that's right.
92.
Be careful if something.
Sorry?
If something is powerful. Always.
I have a
If it's
question.
davar charif,
It's never powerful.
the davar charif might be right, but it doesn't say that here. Actually, it's an interesting point.
Disgusting.
I had a question.
Hey, this exciting.
Yeah, even if it's all cold.
Davar charif could sometimes be a problem even if it's cold. Yes, it's going to come up in Tzaddik Vav. Actually, it's going to come up. No, Tzaddik Vav is knife. No, Tzaddik Vav
We
is
spoke about this last week.
Yeah, but not gonna double hard if it's cold. Not
Yeah,
just
yeah. Some Tzaddik Vav is going to be. That's going to be our next simon. It's going to be about knife and davar charif and the laws around that. That even when it's cold, just plain.
We spoke about it with the onions. Remember?
We did it with the spices. We had that. We had that with the spices, right? But the din was that salt doesn't have the problem, but other spices might, right? Okay, we'll get to that into the Vav. Good point. Yes, thank you, Aaron. Huh? About spices. We went to recently
Last year we were
in
Did it with the pot. We had
No,
it.
we
in
also
regards
went
to using the dish for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go Dalid. Let's do Dalid. What's the halacha you think here? And then Hey is going to be the confusing one, just for fun because you always have to have some fun. Okay, so of course, if the ladle was not used in the last 24 hours, then what's the halacha of the stew? It's fine. The dairy ladle wasn't used in the last 24 hours. By mistake, it ends up in the meat pot. It's a clear. It doesn't matter. It's less than time of gum, even if you don't have 60. That's clear. What about the ladle? The ladle would be a problem. Why? Why is the ladle a problem? Why is the ladle a problem?
because previously absorbed.
And is it a problem b'diavad or just l'chatchila?
Yeah.
B'diavad, it's a problem. So again, you have a ladle that was not used in the last 24 hours for milk.
Yeah.
Put it into a meat pot. Okay, the meat's fine. You don't need shishim because the milk flavor that's been exfoliated from the ladle is detrimental. Levgam, no problem. Take the ladle out. What do I do with this ladle?
You're also davening.
So what do I do with that ladle?
This ladle has absorbed both meat and dairy.
It absorbed both meat and dairy, right? But the dairy the dairy flavor that it absorbed
was negative.
was a negative flavor. So it's positive meat flavor mixed with a negative meat. Sorry.
Just to admit.
So it's a negative milk flavor and a positive meat flavor. Right? Because the meat was just absorbed now and the milk was absorbed 3 days ago. So it's negative milk and positive meat. So to say that it's absolute true basar b'chalav, I can't say that. because basa b'chalav is only going to be milk and meat cooked together
They're
and
positive.
that are positive, especially if it's only if we're relying on tam ikr here. We have no ikr, we don't have the actual stuff, it's just the flavor. Okay, so to say b'di'evid, if that ladle went into something else, to say that the other thing is not kosher, that I can't do. In Gimel, where the ladle was used in the last 24 hours, so the ladle has both positive and has positive flavor of both milk and meat. Then when that ladle goes into something else, it's going to make it not kosher. That's clear. That's Gimel. But here it's negative milk, positive meat. So lechatchila, I'm not going to go and use it because lechatchila I don't use Eina ben Yoimon.
Right, once you realize, right?
Right, but post factum, it's not going to make anything else treif. Right. Furthermore, as many of the commentaries explain,
It wouldn't make meat.
sorry,
It wouldn't make meat tray.
it would make either.
Well, it has positive.
Oh yes, it would if it was.
Now,
Yes. Okay, good point. It has positive meat, so you can't use it into milk. But 24 hours later, the same thing would be is correct.
The evidence.
Yes, you are correct. You're correct. Yeah, it would have to be 24 hours after. It wouldn't ruin the second meat, even though it has milk and meat in it, because the milk was negative. But it would ruin another milk because the meat here is positive.
well, not considered basically a fleshik little.
It's a fleshik ladle that cannot be used.
They shouldn't be used.
That cannot be used consistently for fleshik,
Correct.
or even
The evidence could be used for flesh.
but the evid for was used for fleshik. It's okay, but you cannot use it. You can't use it, right?
Yeah.
That's correct. Very good. And especially considering, so one of the reasons for the stringency here of lechatchila is also because even though right now the mixture of milk and meat is not completely positive, because only the meat is positive, the milk is not. But at the time when it absorbed the milk, it was positive. It wasn't like it absorbed something that was negative to begin with.
Right.
At the time of absorption, it was positive. It became negative 24 hours later, right? And under some circumstances, which we're going to revisit soon, there's a principle that flavors can be reinvigorated when it's met with other flavors.
We spoke about this.
Yeah.
Like,
Spices or other things.
Onions, we said it enhances
Right.
the negative flavor.
Right.
Yeah.
Sharp thing.
Sharp thing. That's what it is.
Which means that the negativity is not inherent, especially since at the time of absorption. Let me put it this way. If, let's just say like this, in the original case, where the ladle was not used in the last 24 hours, right? And that ladle the milk ladle goes into a meat pot. It wasn't used in the last 24 hours. What kind of flavor did the meat absorb?
Negative flavor.
A negative flavor. At no time did it have a positive relationship with that flavor. Whereas this ladle, at some point, did have a positive relationship with that flavor
Right.
when it was first introduced to the milk.
That was yesterday.
It happened. So right now it happens to become negative, but it does. It's not as if it absorbed the negative flavor to begin with. It absorbed the positive flavor, which turned it into a dairy ladle. Because at the time of absorption, it was positive, and therefore to just write it off and say, "Oh, it hasn't been used in 24 hours, so now because it has meat, there's no problem. Go use it again." That we're not going to go
What
so
happens
far.
if the liquid is
That's
sharp?
That's why the we're stringent, but b'diavad we cannot be stringent because at the end of the day, the milk flavor coming out of this is negative,
What happens,
and if at no point did it properly absorb milk and meat in a proper way. Yeah,
what happens if the liquid is sharp that the meat is in?
we spoke about this.
Then wouldn't
Last
wouldn't it
week.
reinvigorate the milk inside the ladle?
It has to the sharpness has to be present now. So if the meat was sharp and you dipped a milk ladle that hasn't been used in 24 hours, I'm gonna say it reinvigorates. Yeah, you're right. I would say so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that's the case. Yes, very good.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
We learned a couple of weeks ago that if a drop of milk falls into a stew, we can stir it in or cover it.
Depending
and
on the
move it
situation,
over.
but yes.
Yeah. Now we're talking about a ladle that was clean, that had no residue on it, that was used for milk within 24 hours, that goes into it. Why couldn't you just take that whole ladle and stick it into the whole liquid,
Only if you have 60 times to the ratio.
assuming you have?
Then we already established it's fine.
Then there's no issue.
Yeah, that's the first halacha.
Yeah.
Everything here is when you don't have 60 to the flavor.
Okay.
If you have 60 to the flavor, you're totally right, of course. It's
Okay.
even you don't even have to mix it around because you can't even identify where it is. The whole point of mixing it around that you're referencing is because you don't want to
You want to mix it
you
in?
don't want to be able to identify where it is, and you can't always do that. We learned the limitations of when
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how and what and where. But the times when you can is because you don't identify where it is. And you're right. In this case, if you have 60 to the ratio of the ladle, you don't have to mix it around because you can't identify where it is anyway.
But then the ladle is still becomes strafe?
The ladle's right because the ladle doesn't have 60 against what it absorbed. It has milk in it, and now absorbed meat. It doesn't have milk 60 times to the meat, so it's going to become treif. Yes, very good. Which is why this problem that if you dump it in again, now you have another problem because it's chanan now, right? Because it's no longer just emitting milk; it's emitting milk and meat. That was the Mechaber's concern with why you have to have double 60. Yeah,
I didn't
okay.
get that.
Sorry?
I didn't get that. I didn't get the double.
The Mechaber's view in Siv Gimel?
But that's really, if you had a thing that was strafe and you put it in, it would only be one part.
Because there's two different Isurim here. There's two different Isurim. The first time you dunked it in, your Isser is making milk and meat. The second time you dunked it in, it's milk and meat being dunked into your pot. The ladle now has both milk and meat in it. So the first time around, you were trying to nullify the flavor of milk. You failed at doing that because you didn't have 60. The second time you're doing it, now it's a new Isser.
If you took.
It's possible falling into my meat.
One second. If you took a second ladle, and the second ladle was also Benjamin, it was also an option. And now you put it in after you put in the first ladle. So now it's not trafe. Does it need one part in 60 only, or one part in 120?
Describe the case again to me.
Instead of taking the same ladle that you used the first time with
A milk ladle.
and you put it in the flesh,
Yeah,
okay.
a milk ladle that we
With
put into the
Benjamin, right?
So a ladle that's just
And
repeating
now
for the
let's
benefit of
take
the
that
thing.
second ladle, which is also good.
Okay, so you had one
Put it in the meat,
ladle A that was dairy put into a meat pot,
right?
and ladle B also dairy into a meat pot.
Okay, what does the second one need?
160.
So you need 60 against both the ladles, clearly. But that
But
case,
60 the first time and 60 the second time? Or
no.
two times?
So actually, in that case, because it didn't happen at once.
It's 1 times 60.
Well,
you
you
would-
also though your case didn't happen at
Oh,
once.
but what's the difference? What's the difference? In the case that you're describing, in each case, what do I need to do? I need to nullify milk flavor.
Mhm.
Meat has to overpower milk.
Right?
In the case I'm describing, it's not milk overpowering meat, overpowering milk. Round one, I was trying to get meat to overpower milk. I failed at that. Round two, I'm trying to get
No,
milk.
you succeeded.
I failed at it because I didn't have 60.
No, you did have 60 though.
Let's just say I didn't have,
Oh.
right? Now round two, or let's say I did have 60, right?
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
You did
Let's say I did.
You did have
Okay, let's say I did.
Okay.
So I nullified the milk. I
Exactly.
nullified the milk, right?
Mhm.
The next time it comes in, I'm not nullifying milk flavor.
Right.
I'm nullifying milk and meat flavor. Because that ladle became treif because it absorbed milk and meat, right? So now I'm nullifying milk and meat. Okay, that's not Ramaz's argument. Ramaz's argument is the same amount what you want from me. Leave it alone. But the Mechaber is saying it's a new Isser. It's a new Isser, which is why the Mechaber is going to say, which is a funny thing, that it's only if you didn't know about it in between. And because you didn't know about it in between, you never established the first nullification. And now you're presented with two nullifications. Once meat against the milk, and once meat against the mixture of milk and meat. So you gotta have 120. If you knew about it in between, then once you know about the first time round, that's been nullified. And second time round, all you need is 60. So your knowledge in between will change the halacha. That's what comes out from the Mechaber, based on the Mishnah. Sorry?
It's a different principle.
No, it's like this. The halacha establishes, every time a situation comes up to you, the halacha establishes the status of that thing. So the pot is a meat pot, a dairy ladle goes into it.
Right.
I realized right away, I made a quick cheshbon, okay, it's 60 times for the ratio of the ladle, which is probably most of the times anyway.
We're talking about the stew, but we're talking about the ladle.
Yeah, the stew, okay, so 60 times to the ratio of the ladle, my stew is fine. And then someone else comes in 5 minutes later and takes that same ladle and puts it back in. Right? So it says the Mechaber, that case,
You need 120.
you only need 60, says the Mechaber. Why do I only need 60?
Didn't know.
Because I knew in between, and I already established that the milk has been nullified. So the halacha established the milk has been nullified. So now when the ladle comes back in, all I need is to nullify this ladle. But if I didn't know about it in between,
The second person didn't know.
because I knew. Because I knew about
The
it.
second person who put it in.
1 second. But because I knew about it the first time round,
Yeah.
so via my knowledge, the halacha established that this is nullified flavor. So the ladle comes in again. I got to ask the question again. Did the pot nullify the ladle? Answer, yes. No problem. I don't need to have 120. But if I didn't know about it, and no one knew about it in between. So now the question is being presented to me is not a question of one nullification. The question being presented to me is two nullifications. Once against the milk and once against the milk and meat. And thus I have to have 120. So because I didn't know in between, so the kasha, the question being presented to me now is two questions. A, did I nullify the milk? B, did I nullify the milk and meat? So I got to have 120. Had I known about it after the first time the milk went in, then I would have established that the milk is nullified. And the second time around, all I need is 60 against it. So my knowledge in between changes the halacha.
Again.
It's a wild thing.
In simple terms, which case did it need 60 and which case did it need 120?
If I don't know about it in
Did not
between,
know about it.
if no one knows about it in between, then I need 120. Because the question,
Know about it.
correct, because what's being
You knew
presented,
about it in Route 60?
yes, because because the question is like this, every time a halachic question gets presented to me, and the halacha bells out an answer, that creates the reality of that thing. So when I knew about the fact that there's a dairy ladle in the meat pot, I knew about it. So in that time, I've established that there's 60 in the meat to the ratio of that ladle. So the halacha determined that the milk flavor is gone. So now in the next time when the ladle comes back in, it's the same question again. Do I have 60 in this ladle again, in the pot against the ladle? So if I knew about it in between, I would only need 60 in the next time around. But if I didn't know about it in between,
I'm the same
So-
one who put it in the first time and put it in the second time.
irrelevant to who puts it in, I'm just making the point
No,
to somebody
I
else.
know,
Yeah. So I did it twice.
No, if I put it in the first time, that means I know,
So I did it twice, yeah?
and I did it twice.
So I did it twice.
then-
And now the question
then
comes
we
before
only
me.
60 and 60.
So now the question becomes before me. What's the question coming before me now? The question becoming before me is two things. A, I have a problem that I put milk into meat. B, I have a problem I put basar b'cholav into meat. And because I have two questions, I got to answer them both. So I need 120 times. That's the Mechaber's logic, based on the Mishnah. That your knowledge of what happens will determine the status of the thing. Because the question is, did the halach have time, so to speak, to determine that this flavor is gone?
So
Or not.
the knowledge
It's a wild thing.
120. Without the knowledge, it's 60.
Just 6, correct.
Okay, I heard the opposite.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the
I
correct.
want to hear the opposite before, exactly.
Okay, I apologize.
Now I understand.
Yeah, okay, good.
Right.
Okay, halacha hey, I'm going to present the case to you, and don't look in the Shulchan Aruch because it's just to work your mind, see if it works, see if you get it, and then this is going to be the surprising din, and because of its surprisingness, really the reason why Laman Yilmudu wanted us to learn Tzedek Hey first is for the halacha we're about to learn right now, and because of how surprising the halacha is, many of the commentators inside actually disagree with the halacha being determined here. So let's present the case. You have a big pot of water. It's a new pot that's Parve, never been used before. Yeah. And then I put a dairy ladle in it. Yeah. And then another time I boiled water again and I put a meat ladle in it. All within 24 hours of each other. Both the meat and the dairy ladle were used within the last 24 hours.
You changed the water.
I changed the water. Even changed the water, right? Yeah, the Mechaber says here you put new water in. Yeah. So you have you change the water. Yeah. Pamacheres, new water. So you have a part of a pot, boiled water, milk, fresh ladle in there. New water.
With milk on it or just a milk
Yes,
ladle?
the whole halacha here is only flavor.
Only-
No mamushes. Only flavor is the halacha we're dealing with now. Yeah. So it's not Lesson Tam of Gam, it's Lesson Tam Shvach. It's been within the last 24 hours, been used in the last 24 hours. And then an hour later, boil water again, and I dipped a meat ladle in there.
There's 60 times of the.
And you don't have 60 times in the ladle too. You
Can
do
I-
not have 60 in the water against the ladles.
But the water itself being boiled before the ladle went in kosherizes the ladle.
Okay, that's a good question. And assuming it doesn't, because you already spoke about that actually once.
Again, if it's a metal,
it doesn't.
it kosher.
Assuming it doesn't, because the reason is because for kosherizing, you need to have water boiling to the point that it's creating big bubbles.
Yeah, that's
For
what you said. It was
for
boiling.
absorption of flavor, all you need is that this boil. So
Yeah.
the boiling here is not such a rolling boil. It's less than a kosherizing
Not
level.
roiling.
It's not rolling boil.
Oh.
It's a less than a kosherizing, but higher than absorption. So again, part of a pot full of water, hot water. I put my milk ladle. Then again, same part of a pot within 24 hours, boiled again, hot water, dip my meat ladle in there. What do you think?
The question.
The
is,
pot
it's part of
becomes
a pot.
non-kosher.
It's a part of a pot.
Right, no, but after you put in the milk ladle that doesn't have 60 against it.
So what happens to the pot now?
Becomes
It's
milk.
The pot's milk.
Pot's milk. And then I pour. Then I put
It's
some,
not a part of a pot the second time around.
second time around now it's a milk pot. Yes, correct.
Okay.
So you don't have 60 into the ratio, and you dip the a meat ladle in there. What's the halacha of the pot?
The pot's not kosher
Explain why.
because
No.
it absorbed. Within
How did
the
it absorb?
24 hours.
How did it absorb?
The water itself transfers the flavor to the pot.
Okay, tell me how many steps you get from the original meat
That's fine.
to the pot.
So you're saying not bar not.
It's not just not bar not twice. It's not bar not 3 times. From the meat to the ladle, from the ladle to the water, and the ladle to the water to the pot. Based on everything we learned, we should say this is fine. But what does the Shulchan Aruch say? Both the Mechaber and the Ramah?
No.
Not okay. And everybody's like, what? Well, hold on a second. What happened to not barnats here? We learned this last week. If you're cleaning dishes in boiling hot water, yeah, and the ladle goes in once, and then they have to later you put the ladle afterwards in the same water. Never mind, not new water, in the same
The
water.
water's not.
But because it wasn't, it was one after the other, so the water never became chanan or something, and the pot is fine. And here we're saying it's no good. What's the deal? What's the story here? All the Mefarshim struggle to explain why the Machaber and Shulchan Aruch are stringent here, especially the Shulchan Aruch, which says that Meile and the Rambam who says, sorry,
It's a condition.
doesn't matter. It's still not barnat. There's no meat here. It went from meat to ladle to water to meat. So Meile, according to the Rambam, who says that not barnat doesn't happen during cooking. So maybe because here the water is cooking, so it's not mamish 3 times not barnat, but it's still 2 times not barnat. It's from the meat to the ladle, and from the ladle to the water/pot, because it's all mixed together. But according to the Machaber, certainly, who says not barnat can happen even during cooking, you have meat to ladle, ladle to water, water to pot. Why are we making it no good? Why are we saying it's treif? All the Mefarshim struggle with this question, and I think it's the Shach who actually says, I'm going to reject the halacha here and go with Tzaddik and say it's not barnat and it's all fine, disagreeing with the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. But nonetheless, it would seem from the majority of the commentaries that the Shulchan Aruch here is giving us a stringency that actually isn't the halacha. Now, what's the reason for the stringency here? Is the struggle?
But not barnat is not
So number one way of saying it is the not barnat is only post factum. You don't make not barnat lechatchila, and therefore you shouldn't. We're going to say the pot is treif. Adding to the fact is more important is the following: the Mechaber describes the situation as a new pot. You haven't designated it yet as either milk or meat, and because it's a question of you designating it, you cannot go ahead and designate a pot that has absorption of both milk and meat and decide which one's going to be. If the pot was always designated as a milk pot, and now it absorbed meat, so we're going to keep it in its designation, so long as the absorption was either nois and tam of gam or not barnat, and let the pot remain in its original designation, and not get ruined by the new absorption, because the absorption was so weak because it's not barnat. But in this case, where it's a new pot, you never designated it as milk and meat. So what are we going to say? You have a pot here that absorbed fresh flavor of both milk and meat, and we're going to say, oh, coin toss, choose which one you want it to become now. Says the Mechaber, because of that, we're going to be stringent and say, kosherize it, give it a restart, and then designate which one you want it to be. So the fact
that's how someone else explained it.
that's how some explain that seems the majority of the explanation for this halacha here, why they're stringent. Because it's a new pot, so it's not a din. It's not a din. It's not an original halacha. The original halacha is it's not barnat. It's a chumrah, and the chumrah is based on designation. We don't want you to have a coin toss or a pot that has literal absorption of milk and meat, both of which those absorptions are good. It's just weakened by not barnat, and now you choose which one you want it to be. If
Why couldn't we just say that the pot after this entire process remained parve?
and then you could choose if you want it to be milk or meat, right?
Right.
That says that's the chumrah we don't want. That's the chumrah we want to imply.
That's one?
That's the chumrah we want to apply here. We don't want, which is why actually it says you could keep on using it for parav if you wanted to.
And not meat or milk.
Yes, you could keep it for parav because its designation was parav. You're not changing its designation. The absorption of milk and meat was too weak to ruin it, so keep on using it for parav.
But something parve, I now could say, I want to use this for flavor.
And that parav you can use for whatever you want because it's a fully parav pot. It never became basar b'chalav or basar or chalav. But if you want to choose which one, sorry?
What are the other argument?
Oh, and therefore, if you want to choose that it becomes either for meat or milk, we want you to reset it. We don't want you choosing between milk and meat when it actually has an absorption of both. And that's the chumrah. Even though minadin, there's no real basar b'chalav in here. Following?
But he's saying a regular parapod, you could choose later on to make it meat or dairy. So he's saying
You only if it never absorbed milk or meat. That's the chiddush here. The chiddush of the din
In
here,
this case, this parve pot, it has to remain a parve pot?
correct. Unless you kosherize it, then you have a reset. You can choose milk or meat. It's a chumrah. Remember, it's not minadin because minadin, it's not barnat. It's not barnat shlishi.
Right.
But because it actually, at the end of the day, has both milk and meat in it, it's too what's the word? It's too flippant to just say, oh, you have milk and meat in here, choose which one you want. Maintain its status because the flavor is too weak, no problem. We do that across the board.
No problem.
So use it as part of. But if you decide you want to have milk or meat, you can't choose between two flavors that are in there. Reset it and then choose. That's essentially the halacha hey, even though on its face of it,
Part of the pot that needs to be kosher if you want to use it for milk or meat.
if it ever absorbed
Yeah.
milk or meat by second degree,
Yeah, yeah.
which usually it doesn't.
It's all not or not, but at
Usually-
the end,
But why would your part of the pot, why would you assume your part of pots to begin with have not of milk or meat in it? Unless you actually know that you put a fleshik
no.
ladle in it that didn't have 60 to the ratio and was ben yoimai, why would you assume it has either or? This is a case where you know for sure it absorbed not of both.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily know that of all your part of the pots. In fact, you should assume it didn't do that. Then you can choose which one you want it to be. But when you know that it absorbed both flavors, even though both flavors are too weak to make it a halachic problem, don't just choose flippantly which one you want it to be. That is sif hey. Okay, then I'm going to add some more details, which you know, with respect to shishim and one of the two flavors being a negative flavor. These are halachas that we know already, and that will come up in sif hey. Okay, so that's an overview of what we're going to be learning this week. Again, it's not very hard sifim. It's just application of everything we've already learned, with the exception of this last new chidush. This new chidush that you have to choose a designation, and you can't just willy-nilly choose one when you have both of them in there. But other than that, it's pretty much straightforward based on all the principles we already learned. And God willing, on Thursday we'll do chazara lamaisa. There's going to be a lot of lamaisa stuff here because this happens all the time. Wrong ladle, the wrong pot. We already started that last week, 2 weeks ago, but we'll continue God willing on Thursday. The day of everybody. Yeah, thoughts, comments, questions, clear?
Awesome, thank you.
Have a great day. Good luck.